Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Coroner, a great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. The moment we opened the episode, I was like, and the moment I saw Flora, I was like, oh my god, yes, we are continuing this storyline, because I felt like there was so much left open. I was like, this can't be just ended with last episode. Good thing it didn't. But obviously her cleaning up, Aaron and Caleb's family, like dad's blood and stuff like that, cleaning up, the scene of the murder. But then she's frustrated by everything playing out the way it did. And then ultimately she gets visited by someone and gets killed. And obviously it turns out at some point Caleb escaped the psych ward, and they come in and they find, and the moment they Donovan came upon the scene and he saw things as they were, I was like, what is that? I was like, that's not like a worm or that's not like a tapeworm or something. Turns out it is. I was like, because at first I was like, it looked like that might be her intestines, but it's moving. Turns out it's a humongous tapeworm, and I was like, that's interesting. Because it also turns out that, was it John, Aaron, and Caleb's dad? Apparently he had one too. Because it wasn't just in her intestines, or maybe someone else's liver had one as well. That might have been hers, or maybe that was John. Whatever the case may be. Now it puts things in perspective of okay, so something's definitely weird going on here. Obviously, it all points to Caleb, but then Jenny later on with these worms, these tapeworms, she started realizing, if the entire family has it, there's a good chance Caleb has it, and if he has one in his brain, it's been eating away his frontal lobe. A tapeworm getting your brain is rare, but it can happen, and so that could also explain, his sudden burst of, anger issues and everything like that, so everything's pointing towards there might be more of an explanation as why Caleb's going through all this. Granted, that's before Jenny also, Jenny got hit with a bam, 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 bam. She has to deal with the fact is obviously picking up where she slapped her mom last episode. Or just straight up hit her mom last episode, apparently. Jenny's outside processing everything. Because, in her mind, it's you left after I killed Katie. It's and it's I know you didn't do that on purpose. It wasn't that reason. It's really? Then why'd you happen to leave immediately sometime after I killed Katie? And it's because she feels she talks about it that she talked about it previously with Ross, that Jenny and her dad always had the best relationship. They always clicked. And I think for her, it's after Katie died, she couldn't even get out of bed. It was up to Jenny's dad to kind of hold down the fort. He had to be there for her in those moments that she couldn't be, because she was, obviously drowning in her own sorrows about everything, because she didn't blame Jenny for Katie's death. That's not even why she left. She left because she couldn't really deal with it at the time. And she tried to, because it's interesting, because didn't Peggy reference last episode she tried to reach out to Jenny when she was 16, but Jenny was no. But Jenny's I haven't seen you since Katie died. So I'm wondering, maybe that's another aspect of it. Maybe because it's associated trauma of because it's tied to the memory of Katie dying, that maybe her mom did reach out or maybe her mom tried to, but maybe realized, maybe her mom, because she made it sound last episode she reached out to Jenny when she was 16 or something, but Jenny wanted nothing to do. Right. Or maybe she just assumed that. Maybe that was something she said just to ease her own guilt about things. I don't know. But I could have sworn she said that last episode. But the way Jenny's talking about it, yeah, she hasn't seen her mom since Katie died, so who knows? But essentially, she thought, right, your dad was going to do right by you, that he could handle things. He could fill the role that I couldn't, because I couldn't even take care of myself at that point in time. I couldn't even get out of bed. There's no way I could be there for you, but I knew your dad would be there. Because for her, it's she probably felt I was too much of a burden. How could I, stay around being your mom if I couldn't even fill that role? Because I was just, I was in so much pain myself. And obviously, it just, so much time passed that it just became harder and harder to come back. Just didn't feel like she had the right to come back. So Jenny doesn't have to just worry about that. Liam rolls up because apparently Jenny's dad invited him. And then it's and Liam figuring out oh, this is your mom. Oh, this is a complicated situation. And it's oh, and then Clark shows up. It's oh boy, and I even love Jenny. Did my dad invite you? He's no, I just came over because Donovan didn't want to call you, but I figured you need to know after everything that went down. But Caleb's free. And it's like, yeah. And obviously he's like, you don't have to give me an answer right now, but whatever you want to do, like, you know, if you ever need anything, you know where to find me. So it's back to that whole, like, gotta make a choice thing. It seems like she's leaning more towards the Liam situation, like last episode anyway. But it's just kind of like, oh man, good guy Clark. Especially because it's like, they started off a good place and then they went to a complicated place when he wanted to, like, try, bring up charges against her dad for Katie's death. But now it's like, oh, they're in a good spot. So we'll see where things kind of go from there. But upon hearing about Caleb's release, she did call her therapist, because now it's like, she saw Caleb a certain way. She saw him as like you know, as a victim, like his memory loss was real. But now the question becomes like, maybe the memory loss was real and he also was a killer. But it's also like, why would Flora be cleaning up the crime scene? And it turns out it's like, yeah, because you have almost like this, I forgot what the exact terminology is that Jenny used, but it was essentially almost like God. What's that terminology? Stockholm syndrome, kind of like, you know, when you're kind of tied to someone that abuses you, like there's a kind of almost like bad like bond that kind of gets created, almost in like a Stockholm syndrome type of situation of like, yeah, Caleb hurt her, but she still feels they need to love them. Like her and Aaron are protecting him because they love him despite what he's done to them. And so ultimately, Jenny just happening to like get a flat tire around the right area because Malik and Donovan tried looking for like on this big piece of land, they try to find like Caleb, but they couldn't find him. But Jenny finds a factory that kind of is owned by the Brownings because the symbol of it is the angel that they found of a piece of its wing in John's ears. So she goes and investigates and runs into Caleb. And initially she's trying to tell Caleb like, hey, I know you got like a worm in you. It's like everyone in your family does. He was like, no, like what are you talking about? She's like, hey, it's most likely from the hogs you eat. He's like, I don't eat hogs. I'm a vegetarian. He's like, yeah, but maybe when you went hunting, I never went hunting. That was Aaron. And you're like, that put things in perspective. All day, everything he said last episode, 100% garbage BS. Like it turns out, the one who went hunting, who had the very cantankerous relationship with their father, maybe Caleb did too, but it was mainly Aaron. Aaron's the one with the aggression issues. He's the one that most likely has the tapeworm around his brain. So all like the flip outs and stuff like that hurting people, it wasn't them covering for Caleb, it was them covering for Aaron. So Aaron puts everything on his brother, especially now that his brother was like blanking on his memory. So it's like, yeah, it's a perfect. I was almost wondering about that, whether or not like Caleb was, but I was like, it seemed like it was just too much him. Like I said, last episode, I kept being like, oh, I thought Caleb ended up being, I thought he was Flora and Aaron's child or something. Like, I thought there was something related. That was my theory. But there was some part of my brain, I'm like, it feels like it might be, maybe this is a setup, but, you know, regardless, it turns out it was. But Aaron's the one with the issues. He's the one that hurt people, including Flora. They're who the family kept buying off. The connection that she, like, it's like, yeah, Caleb and Flora, the person that they loved, as, like, Caleb kind of puts it, it's like, we were like the Lost Boys and she was our Wendy, you know? And it turns out that I'm assuming he's the one that actually hurt her in the past, like, pushed her down the stairs, even, like, all that. That might have been on him. I mean, maybe Caleb too. Maybe they're trying to say like some like the murders and stuff like that were Aaron, but other stuff was Caleb. I'm thinking it is just, it's always been Caleb. He's always been the one pushing stuff on, making it seem like it was Caleb, but Aaron's the one that's had the anger issues, can't control his emotions. Caleb has some extent of that, but it's also because currently he's confused. He thought his brain couldn't process what he saw, and so it created a block. And so Jenny's actually helping him recover his memories, and he's like, what helped you recover a memory? And she was like, yeah, someone trying to kill me brought it all back. And it's like, what was the thing that your brain was hiding? And she was like, me accidentally killing my sister. I pushed her down the stairs. And to protect me, my brain blocked those memories. And so she's asking, like, obviously the panic of almost dying, like almost someone trying to kill you, like jogged those memories. But now she's like, the kind of panic that Aaron's in right now, she's asking him to use it, and he relieves the memory. At first he's seeing himself doing it, but then he's like, no, it wasn't me. And then he remembers the truth of it was Aaron who did it. And that's a lot of the process, considering like Donovan's out there looking for Jenny, but he ends up getting attacked by Aaron because Aaron hits him with a piece of wood, and you're like, oh, That's not good. And especially because Donovan, it's like, right, because he hasn't dealt with that situation yet, so his spine's in a very bad place, so that blow didn't do him any good. And so he's just writhing in pain, ends up passing out from the pain on the ground. Luckily, he was able to call Malik, and he said, like, we find out about, like, this background thing, like the thing that Malik was looking into last episode, was it Devin Dreyer or something like that? It's like, he's the one that was, like, it was me, and I'm like, wait, what? Because, justice for, like, that person, because I guess he's talking about, like, some cops did something where it's like, I'm assuming he was talking about cops and not, I don't remember, like, what that's all in reference to. Is that just like a background thing, or has that been something that's come up before? Like, because I know, like I said, it came up earlier in the season, like we saw it spray painted on a building, but, like, essentially he was talking about how he knew something was wrong the moment they took him in the back, but he didn't do anything. And it's like, I think his recent situation kind of put his life in perspective of, like, your regrets and stuff like that. Not, hoping that the whole, first finding out you have, like, you had cancer, a tumor, and then also to find out on top of that, like, oh, you may never walk. Like, a lot of that, put things in perspective for him. So I think that is what potentially led this, like, bout of, like, regret, and just, like, that's probably one of his biggest regrets of, like, he wishes he had done something. And in that moment, like, he pushes past the pain after he lets Malik know where he is. He's just, like, pushes past the pain. He's like, I'm coming. It's going to be okay. And he's going to go track down Jenny, who Liam came to pick her up because her car ended up getting a flat tire. Once again, just interesting how fate works out. But he shows up to help Jenny, but Caleb's kind of a little manic right now. He's swinging around a knife. Caleb is trying to get the knife from him, but he kind of gets hurt in the process. Like, apparently, like, one of his ribs started poking through, like, it pierced some, like, particular vein or something like that. It seemed at first like, oh, it's just the stitches, the wound he had, the stitches started leaking or something. But obviously it put him and Jenny in a point where they could start, talking about things, because they both thought they needed to heal separately. Because Liam's like, literally, I'm only in this position because an hour after leaving that farm, like, I started drinking, which, once again, in the episode, like, at least on CW, they didn't show it either. Like, maybe in the original cut of the episode, in Canada, it didn't show it either. But apparently he took a drink. He's like, even an hour later, I crashed my car, lost a horse. I was able to get it all back, but still. And even Jenny thought, like, hey, like, she thought maybe, like, first we both heal up individually, and then we get back together. But maybe it's the other way around. Maybe we get together and then we heal. By being together we can heal. So, and even Liam being like, I'd like that. So I think this is kind of like, because I think Jenny was worried about potentially things going, once again, going back to the way they were before, and not want to go through that again. But obviously Caleb confronts Aaron about it. It's like about Flora. It's like, oh, she did, even saying, like, yeah, she decided to stay because she doesn't love us anymore. But it's like, no, you killed her. I remember you killed our parents. And he was like, you know what Dad did? Like, to toughen me up. All the stuff he talked about with Caleb, I think applied to himself. Of, like, his dad was like, no, like, you're too sensitive. You need to toughen up. Dad, he would hunt me on our hunting trips. He'd shoot bullets at me to whiz by me just to toughen me up. And Mom knew, and she didn't do anything. So it's like, yeah, it's just us, like it's always been. Like, that's why I'm wondering, is that why? Because, like, Flora, maybe in his mind, it's like, Flora, was going to break. She was going to turn against them, and it's like, oh, you're gonna, the moment, like, Aaron saw it, it's like, oh, you were no longer on our side. Like, we were together forever. We were on each other's side, but and so he flew off the handle and killed her, like he did his parents. Like, it's just, I think his conditions just got obviously worse and worse over the years, because, like, his family never took him to really, like, get checked out or for anything. At least it doesn't appear so. They just kept throwing money at the problem, fixing the problems themselves and paying off people, and not just actually looking at the root of the problem. Because I think for their dad, it's like, oh, taking him somewhere to get examined would just be admitting, like, there's something wrong with him. And I guess it's like, might as well bury the family secret, because maybe on some level he knew he was part of the reason why his son's kind of jacked up and didn't want anyone to know about that. Just got to keep up appearances. Who knows? But Liam's situation is getting worse, and luckily Caleb does let Jenny out, and Jenny starts beating the crap out of Aaron. But I guess maybe, whatever the case may be, like during the beatings, which obviously that's been a theme that comes back over and over again, like her smashing stuff with like a bat-like object. So it's interesting to see that still come full circle, because that's been like a running theme throughout this season. But Aaron starts having a seizure. Obviously, Donovan, made his way there, so it's like calling ambulance, and luckily Jenny's by Liam's side, but Liam seems like he's passed out. He was like, "Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I love you." And she's like, "I love you too." At the same time, back home, obviously, Peggy has the biggest regrets of not being there for, Jenny's first period, first time, like when she got married, like a lot of the milestones in her life, she wasn't there for her, and it's like realizing that, her dad, didn't know what, Gord didn't know what he was doing, like half the time. And obviously, but it's like, despite everything, it's like, you are here now. And for Peggy, it's like, that I am, and saying, like, for Gord, it's like, yeah, I imagined you all the time, but, you're actually here now. So just don't give up on Jenny. Like, she's very fragile. Like, she's been through a lot, understandably, but it's like, don't worry. Like, she's going to be, like, just give her time. And so Gordon's like, oh, like, let's go up we can go upstairs. She's like, you can say no if you want to. I'm like, is he implying what I think he's implying? I don't know. Oh, that's just to show off, like, maybe Jenny's room and stuff like that. I don't know. I assume, like, oh, it's been decades, so let's do our thing. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. But ultimately at the end, that ending is super unclear in certain regards, because at first I was like, is Liam dead? I'm like, I don't think he is. I think he's fine, but I think it's just after that experience, like, her getting all her rage out, coming into terms with, like, right, it's, almost being put in a very dangerous situation, Liam being his condition, I think it all kind of sparked something in Jenny. Now, I don't think Liam's there, at least I don't think so, but I think it's just like, I think it just put things in perspective for us, because when she comes back home, she sees her mom, and it's just kind of her standing there, and I think it's just like, everything of, like, she is going to try and it's going to be hard, but try to forgive her mom for everything. And on top of that, dealing with everything that she's dealing with, a lot of those emotions and feeling what she's feeling. So it's a lot to process. Obviously, we see Donovan's dad and Karima there for him as he's kind of getting, sent off for surgery. So hopefully everything works out. So a very, like, most of the previous endings were kind of a little more clear. I mean, granted, there was a whole Liam situation and him and Jenny at the end of season 2, so it's not like it was 100% like, hey, everything's A-okay, but it's like, I don't know, it, like I said, just that ending, it's a complicated ending, and, like I said, doesn't answer everything. Once again, I don't know if, I still need to look more into it, and whether or not these episodes are cut down even more from, their, CBC like counterparts, that being a channel that it airs on, or at least who's behind it, and with its original Canadian airing. I mean, I say that almost like Canada's so far away. It's like, yeah, it's part of North America, which is, it just feels so weird to say that, because I'm so used to being like, oh yeah, like referencing like Asian or British television, that type of thing. But regardless, I'm interested to see what happens next. The show obviously was already renewed for 4th season before season 3 even started airing here in the States. It had already gotten renewed because season 3 already came and went in Canada. So I'm really curious to see what season 4 has in store for us. Once again, it's like this show just leaves stuff open enough. Like the entire arc is done. Like there's still going to be through lines that carry over, but what the next main arc is going to be. Maybe Jenny processing things, like this is her first, like her and Liam, that was her first relationship post her marriage, her husband dying, and now it's like, despite everything, this is them again. Like I said, if it worked out where like Liam is okay, it could be like a he died situation and then just didn't really deal with that. I feel like they would have dealt with that immediately, like that would have at least been hinted at if he had died. I don't know. I assume like Jenny and her mom there at the end was just her processing like everything that went down, but also like where her and her mom potentially go from here. So I think we potentially would see more of her mom in the future, and just, I don't know, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all this will take us going forward next season. I'm excited to find out. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it good day, and goodbye.